Chapter 5. Saria stood in awe of the large building for a moment. When she had first arrived in Fentonia, she had not noticed this house. The driveway sat between several large trees and the house almost equally sheltered. But now they needed to see the owner of the house and had walked part way up the drive. She could see just how large and ornate it was. Someone who knew how to work with stone had put together a masterpiece.
"This person must have a decent amount of money,"
Mira said as they continued to get closer.
"Or had a wealthy relative,"
Saria replied, knowing humans liked to let their children inherit things like grand houses.
"Good point. I suppose we'd best be on good behavior."
Mira led them up to the main door where they rang the bell. A butler appeared a moment later and took a quick look up and down both of them and the wolf before lifting his chin a fraction higher.
"Her ladyship usually prefers those here to trade to use the tradesman's entrance. It is a custom among human populations to respect this."
"Oh, we're not here to trade,"
Mira replied, also lifting her own chin and standing a little stiffer and straighter.
"We might not be human, but we understand her ladyship plays an important role within the town's society, and as such we come to seek her counsel on a delicate matter she may know about. Another young woman is in need of her aid, and we understand her ladyship is intent on doing what good she can for her town's citizens. We don't need much of her time, but would be grateful to be granted an audience. Also, she offered our small party an official invitation to pay our respects after we recently aided the town."
Saria tried to look as confident as possible while Mira spoke, but once more she was grateful for her companions. Saria didn't know the first thing about human ranks and the rules that went with them. It had felt restricting enough observing all the ones in the elven culture. The butler looked as if he might argue, or tell them to come back another time at first, but eventually he nodded.
"Very well. You may wait in the drawing-room while I inform her ladyship of your request to seek her counsel, and learn if she deigns to give it."
"Thank you. That's very kind of you,"
Mira said, as the butler backed up and motioned for them to follow him. As Ulfr came to follow Saria, the butler stopped.
"I can't permit that creature to enter the house," he said.
Saria opened her mouth to object, but Ulfr seemed to understand. He huffed and sat down by the door.
"I won't be long,"
she said instead, patting his head. Satisfied, the butler motioned for them to follow and lifted his chin another fraction higher. After shutting the door and blocking Ulfr from coming in, even if the wolf had wanted to, the butler walked past large wooden stairs towards a door tucked to the right-hand side and pushed it open.
"Wait in here,"
he said, as if it hadn't been completely clear already what they were meant to do, and then he hurried back the way he had come.
"Is this likely to work?"
Saria asked, barely above a whisper, once they were alone together.
"I think so,"
Mira replied.
"Old ladies without many relatives or visitors often enjoy having their advice sought. Anything to let them talk for a while and feel useful and necessary to town life. Hopefully, she'll be a little curious about who we are as well."
Saria was about to respond when they heard the sound of feet on the stone flooring, coming closer bit by bit. A moment later, a small wisp of a woman walked in. Her gray hair was done up tightly in a bun, and she wore a dark, almost black dress that hung from her petite frame. Despite looking like she could be crushed with a tight hug, she had a look upon her face that suggested she was more than capable of crushing others if she wished.
"I understand you want my advice,"
the woman said, not even asking their names.
"We do, and your help with something greatly puzzling both us and Bernard, the servant of the mayor's previous butler."
"I know to whom you refer. He's a good servant, and it's a shame his employer was such a bad apple. But I've told the mayor I didn't think much of his butler on many occasions. He let in too many riffraff to see the mayor, and didn't always know when it was wise to hold his tongue. To hear that he had gone wholly bad was no great surprise. But tell me, what you wish to know.
We're trying to help him find his sister, Mira replied, and we have reason to believe she left in a carriage, either willingly or by force.
And you wish to know if it was my carriage, given I have one of only 2 in the town?
3 if you count the priest now also gone, Saria replied. Instantly, the woman's eyes narrowed.
Well, I can answer this little question better with a visual aid if you'll follow me.
Lady Killen walked out of the room, and Mira was the first to respond and hurry after. Saria could only think of how strange the whole thing was, and try to keep up. The elderly woman led them through several connecting corridors, and a couple of large rooms, until they were on the other side of the house, in a small courtyard. Sitting under a cover at one end of the courtyard was a carriage, but it had clearly not been anywhere in a while. The left front wheel was broken. 3 of the wheel spokes splintered. It also looked as if the iron axles had warped, snapped, or been bent, rust setting into the exposed metal.
As you can see, this hasn't been used in many months, so my carriage, and therefore myself, were not involved in Kiana's disappearance, as unfortunate as it is.
Thank you, Mira replied. That was what we needed to see.
You won't find the mayor's carriage so useful in giving you conclusive proof,
Lady Killen said as she turned and led them back through the house. As they went inside, Saria caught sight of the butler lingering in the background of the house, clearly keeping fairly close to Lady Killen in case he was needed.
Perhaps not, but thank you for aiding us so far. It's narrowed down the possibilities if nothing else.
I can go one further, however, she said,
lifting her hand and motioning to her butler. He immediately came hurrying forward and gave a low bow.
Have Ethel sent for. These visitors of ours will have a question for her, no doubt.
Who is Ethel?
Mira asked as the butler hurried away, all politeness and pretense of it suddenly vanishing.
Ethel is a maid of mine. She has a small room at the front of the house in the eaves, along with another maid. A particular evening, approximately 6 weeks ago, Ethel was writing a letter sitting by the window, or so she informed me recently. I didn't know she could write, but she has assured me that it was to her family and nothing untoward.
Did she see something?
I thought she must have been imagining things, but you've made me doubt myself. Something very rare indeed.
Lady Killen pulled back her shoulders and looked to the door, the sound of approaching shoes on the stone letting them know the butler had succeeded at last.
Come in, Ethel,
Lady Killen said, holding out a hand to her maid and motioning to the carpet in front of Mira and Saria with the other.
These 2 intrepid adventurers wish to hear your tale. Tell it to them as you did to me last week, and no fretting. There will be no trouble, as I already assured you.
As you wish, Mum,
Ethel replied as she came into the room properly, gave a small curtsy to her employer, and then turned to Mira and Saria. Her eyes went wide as she took in the adventurers.
My appearance is more frightening than I actually am, Mira said, smiling gently. My race is descended from the dragons of old, but I'm far more human than you'd think.
Ethel nodded, but her eyes stayed wide and flicked occasionally to Saria, only to settle on Mira again.
Go on, dear. Tell them what happened.
Lady Killen's voice was soft, like a mother might encourage her grown-up daughter to be brave. The more Saria saw of the elderly woman, the more she liked her. Ethel nodded, took a deep breath, and then exhaled slowly.
Well, it was a few nights ago now, so I can't remember every little detail, but I do know there were plenty of stars, and I kept glancing out at them. They've always fascinated me so. Anyway, I was sat by the window, writing a letter to me ma and pa. When I paused to think about how I spelt a word, I looked out at the town, and I could see over the trees from my window. I can see the temple and the mayor's house mostly."
"So you can see the buildings that hold our interest?" Mira grinned even more.
"Oh, I believe so. Well, while I was trying to think, I noticed movement, and a carriage headed from the temple to wait out in the street. I saw the priest get out, but not where he went. One of the large trees hid that. We didn't come back for a while, and my candle almost finished. I had to carry on with the letter. I still didn't know if I spelt the word right either. Not that I can even remember what word it was. And then I hurried into bed." "And the carriage was gone in the morning?"
Saria asked.
"That it was, and so was the priest." "Do you know if it was the same night that Kiana went missing?" "Oh, I can't say for sure. We didn't know the last was gone for sure until at least a week later. But the priest got out of his carriage and went towards the house she lived in. If he wasn't involved, then it was a night of two strange events, and I've never been one to believe strangeness strikes us that often."
"Thank you, Ethel,"
Lady Killen said.
"You may return to your duties. And in future, if you struggle with a word, look it up the next day. There's a dictionary of sorts my father compiled in the study."
"Thank you, Mum. That's mighty kind of you,"
Ethel said as she curtsied at them all, and then hurried from the room.
"I know it's not a lot to help you understand what has happened,"
Lady Killen continued once they were alone,
"but I am of a similar mind to Ethel when it comes to the likelihood of multiple events occurring in one night. They're likely to be linked."
"I think we're all in agreement there," Mira replied. "We have suspected the priest for a little while. We'll go see the mayor to be sure, but I think you've given us our answer. But I have one more question, if you'd humor us a little longer."
"You'd best speak it and be quick about it. I don't like to be late for my afternoon tea, and you're in danger of making it the first time in months."
"Could you furnish us with a brief description of the priest's carriage, and how it might differ or be distinguishable from others?" Mira asked. "I have a feeling there are few in town who would have the right eye for such details." Lady Killen smiled a little smugly before nodding.
"He had it painted a wonderful shade of blue, with gold filigree from a painter I recommended. A tad over the top, perhaps, for a town priest, but he was a wealthy man, and didn't like to hide it even if it was considered shameful for him to boast of it. But it was a narrow little thing, not designed truly for the four he often used to bear in it."
Lady Killen looked thoughtful for a moment, tilting her head to one side.
"And it had a strange look to it from the front. The coachman's seat had been raised, making it appear the coachman rode almost entirely on top, but somehow the reins still worked as to not injure or confuse the horses. It did allow it to carry more luggage beneath the coachman's seat, however."
"Thank you," Mira said. "That's exactly the sort of information we needed. I am very grateful for the time you've given us. Let us go and leave you to your afternoon tea."
"I imagine it shall be a little less interesting than I would have thought it before your arrival. Am I right in understanding that you have a wolf with you, waiting right outside my front door?"
"I believe so,"
Saria replied, finding the genteel way of talking that the lady used was beginning to brush off on her.
"That's where I left Ulfa."
"Then come. I will see you out and get to witness his appearance with my own eyes."
Saria nodded and smiled, letting the elderly woman lead the way back to the front door. Ulfr sat exactly where Saria had left him, by the door, his tongue hanging out of his mouth as he panted in much the same way a dog did.
"Oh my, he's bigger than I expected. And he belongs to you?"
Lady Killen asked Saria.
"He doesn't belong to me so much as we found each other and decided sticking together was best. He came to me."
"Ah, I see,"
Lady Killen said, although it didn't truly sound like she did.
"Well, I thank you for having the heart to look into this matter for Bernard. I hope you can find not only his sister, but given what Ethel thinks she saw, perhaps the priest as well. He was such a well-loved member of our little community.
That's what we plan to do, Saria found herself saying before Mira could do so. And inside, Saria knew it was true. Hearing everything Ethel had said, along with Bernard's request, had made Saria's mind up. There was clearly something more going on, and she intended to try and find out what, even if Thorgrim didn't like that his predecessor was implicated in something untoward. As they walked back down the drive, leaving the old lady and her large house behind them, Saria felt Mira's gaze on her. "What?" she asked, when she had grown curious enough and annoyed enough. "Thank you," Mira replied. "I know they may still have just run off together or something simple, but thank you for coming with me to find out, and for wanting to look further. I think we have to now. There's enough suggestion that one or both of them might be in trouble."
"Or the priest abducted her?"
Mira replied, almost grinning. "Don't let Thorgrim hear you say that."
Mira chuckled, and the sound was contagious. Pretty soon they were both giggling as they grew closer to the center of town.
"Do you think we should go see the mayor?" Saria asked. "I'm pretty sure he wasn't involved."
"I agree. But he might like to know something possibly happened between or to his citizens, especially if his priest did abduct Kiana."
Saria sighed and nodded, letting her friend steer her onwards. The mayor asked them to come up to his office, answering the door himself and looking a little flustered.
"It's not easy replacing a butler as good as Traylon was," the mayor said. "Bernard is trying to learn quickly, but he has his own household to manage and no servant of his own yet. It's left me more than a little overwhelmed. But I imagine you're not here to ask about how I'm doing at trying to fill Traylon's post."
"No," Mira replied. "We think the priest may have abducted Kiana when he left." "Or they left together," Saria added.
The mayor immediately put down the books and parchments he had been carrying.
"I think you'd better start this story from the beginning. I knew Kiana was missing or had been dragged into my old butler's devious plans, but I thought the priest had left with good reason, even if a little quickly. He gave us some warning, although it's never as much as a mayor would like."
Mira took control of the situation again, telling the mayor everything.
"Well, it certainly seems like the two of them might be together and left on the same night, something I wasn't aware of. I assume you're here because you already intend to look into it."
"That is our intention."
"Good. If anything has led to them leaving against their will, I'll give you 20 gold for the safe return of each of them, and if either is to blame, their return to face justice. If someone else is behind it, and you bring them both back safely, I'll ensure you're rewarded further."
30 gold each,
Mira replied, almost grinning at the opportunity to negotiate.
25.
"Deal. We'll keep you informed of progress."
"I take it all 5 of you will be working on this?"
"Where our collective expertise and experience is needed, yes," Mira replied. "But Thorgrim is aware you have need of his abilities in the temple."
"All right, then. Let anyone who makes it awkward for you know you have my full blessing to ask questions and gather what evidence you can."
Once more, Mira grinned. She had found something for the group worth doing, and it was something the rest of them had overlooked.